Welcome to this little review of an interesting little keyboard by a company called AEON Universal. It's called the AC61m. This is a 60% layout keyboard. It's got an aluminium case. It's sort of a relatively stereotypical looking little gaming keyboard. Probably not the kind of thing that I would buy if I'm being honest with you, because I don't really have a lot of use for 60% keyboards as I'm not a gamer. But what I do want to do is I want to review it from my own perspective. I use keyboards. I'm a keyboard, I customize keyboards, so I'm looking at this keyboard from a customization point of view, how the typing experience is before you modify it, how the typing experience is after it, the build quality of it, all of these kinds of things. So outside of just having a real good look at it, taking it apart, getting a look at the insides, the three main things that I'm looking for on a keyboard. Now this keyboard is a $70 keyboard if you buy it on Amazon. It's kind of in competition with the GK61, stuff like that. The slight difference with this one is that it's an aluminium case, which I really like the idea of, which was why I was interested in it. But the three things that I'm kind of going to be measuring against this with the customization and typing experience in mind. So they're specifically specifying that this is a very customizable keyboard. So based on that, hot swappable, it must be easy to take apart, it must be, and for me the switches must be mechanical. Now, spoiler alert, I've already taken this apart and done the modifications on it. I can't wait for stuff like this. Luckily, I've recorded a lot of that stuff, so you'll see it in a second in the video, but it hits the target in terms of being hot swappable. It is a hot swappable keyboard, which is great. It's super easy to take apart because it basically is just a plate and PCB assembly sat inside a single piece aluminium case, which is great from that perspective. Unfortunately, it's an optical keyboard. Now, the reason I say unfortunately it's an optical keyboard is because regardless of your standpoint, if you're a gamer watching this video with it in mind that you want to game with this keyboard, optical switches are, as far as I'm aware, are very good, very capable switches and very good for gaming. I think I saw some arguments online for saying that they're even better than mechanical switches in some regards. But from a customizing point of view, I've got alpacas, I've got Gateron yellows sat on the shelf, I've got switches all over the place, none of which will go in this keyboard because it's an optical switch keyboard. So that's one negative from me straight off the bat. So if we just have a quick look at it before I show you me taking it apart, the weight of it is reasonably nice. So it's a relatively chunky boy for a 60% keyboard because it's aluminium, so 894 grams, if that helps you at all. So the keycaps are kind of fine. It's, very stereotypical looking, sort of stealthy black gaming keyboard, 60%. Because of the fact that it's 60%, obviously you get a lot of function keys where you hold the function key and you can get the arrows. But obviously, it's the reason I don't go for keyboards like this and have a lot of experience with them is because if I want to press delete on this keyboard, that's actually on the M key as a function. So I need to press function delete to delete something out of a document, which is what I use these keyboards for more often than not, is writing technical documentation for my work. So not really much good for me in that regard. Because of that, I'm not going to be reviewing the keyboard from that perspective so much, just really a quality and typing feel. I do like the design of it. It's a pretty sleek looking little thing. It's like I say, it's got good weight in the hand. By comparison to say like a plastic keyboard in the same budget range, you're kind of, for me, it's gonna feel more quality in the hand just due to the nature of it being aluminium over a budget aluminium case over a budget plastic case. So it feels pretty nice in the hand. It's got kind of a nice little embellishment here on the edge where they put a beveled edge all the way around it, which is just to machine a lip on the edge of the case to create like a polished frame to the top of it, if you like. Interestingly, it's got two USB-C ports on the back that you can plug into either side, I guess, depending on what your desk setup is. Obviously, it's got the four rubber feet on the bottom without height adjustment for the angle, the angle adjustment of the keyboard, which is okay. It doesn't bother me too much, and the good thing with that is it gives you obviously a really nice, stable feeling keyboard on the desk. So now we'll jump over to some other footage that I took of taking this keyboard apart, and we'll show you what's inside it, and I'll give you my thoughts on the quality of stuff inside it. So just quickly off the bat, let's just do a little typing test. I got the optical, as you saw just now. I'll take the keycap off there. You can see that's the Gateron yellow optical switch. Let's just check out the stabilizers. Alright, that's pretty respectable really. Let's just have a quick look under one of those keycaps. So I'm obviously expecting this to be plate mounted stabilizers, which it is. They're pre-lubed, which is why they sound pretty reasonable straight off the get-go here. Well, that really is pretty good for a stock keyboard. Right, so as you'd expect, yeah, there's sort of a lot to be desired. I think the stabs are really good, but yeah, it doesn't sound good. I think the keyboard, perhaps the keycaps, but also the keyboard sounds quite hollow, even though it's aluminium. So not a brilliant typing test really, but that's to be expected. It comes with pretty cool braided cable, USB-C, sort of with like a gold effect on the metal on the connectors. So that looks pretty cool. There you go, and then in that little box you just got a keycap puller and a switch puller, so yeah, that's pretty useful as well. Okay, so now that we're at this point in the kind of teardown, if you like, we'll just make some comments on sort of quality of stuff. That's the idea of this video really, is to strip it down and have a look at everything. The keycaps are kind of fine. It's very kind of generic gaming keyboard look. Like this would kind of, unfortunately, sort of blend into the crowd on Amazon and places like that. It just looks like a gaming keyboard to me. Keycaps and stuff shine through, the colour of them, yeah, all just kind of stereotypical gaming keyboard stuff. The plate is kind of either aluminium or steel, painted white. So let's get the switches out. Now obviously, as I said before, these are optical switches, Gateron yellows. I don't know why they would go with optical switches particularly. I don't want to comment on whether whether optical switches or mechanical switches are better for gaming. It's not something I'm particularly interested in. You can formulate your own opinions on them from that perspective. I've taken one of these apart because this is my first go with optical switches, and they look like you can mod them just as much as you can a normal switch, as long as you don't get anything in the kind of the stem of the switch and this bottom housing, you know, unless you overlube it so much that you sort of make it so as you affect the signal in the PCB there, which is created just by that yellow stem coming down into that slot there. As long as you don't affect that, I can't see how you can do any damage really by you know, you could lube this pretty much the same way as you would lube a mechanical switch, just staying away from the bottom of the housing and not using oil. But yeah, you can pretty much, you know, do everything else, put switch films in there and stuff. So yeah, I'm not too bothered about the optical switches from that perspective, but there's no doubt that there's nowhere near you know, it definitely makes it much less customizable than if it had mechanical switches, because you just don't have the same choice of optical switches as you do mechanical switches. What I would like to see inside this in a minute is I would like to see some plate foam, some foam between the plate and the PCB. I'm not seeing it at the moment. The foam at the bottom of the case is less important as far as I'm concerned, because you can use any foam for that. You can use the foam packing that comes with the keyboard. You can buy some cheap stuff off Amazon. You could cut up an old mouse mat and put it in the bottom. You can use lots and lots of different things. And other than that, you've only really got the option of spending sort of 20 odd euros on a modular plate foam kit, on a modular foam kit that you put on a square at a time basically, or it comes in packs of 4, 3s and 2s and 1s, I think it is, something like that, and you kind of stick it to the underside of the plate. But obviously there's an extra cost to that, and when you're working with an entry-level keyboard or a budget keyboard where you may already be on a budget, it's not very good to then have to spend another, I think it's 20 euros for a modular plate, for a modular foam kit in Europe. So that's a massive sort of cost, an extra cost onto a keyboard that you've bought as a ready to go keyboard. So Be nice to see some plate foam in here. So the plate has to come out before you can take the stabilizers off. They don't fit out very nice from the top like that, with the plate and the PCB still together. So let's see how it comes apart. Yeah, it definitely ticks that box. That was really easy to obviously get out of there. So that's the plate off. Obviously no foam dampening in between the plate and the PCB, which is a little bit disappointing. Oh, the stabs are not very good. There's a lot of play in between the wire and where it clips into the housing there, which is no good. So yeah, the stabilizers, they sounded alright in the keyboard actually, but it's kind of fallen, you know, that's kind of fallen out of there as I've taken it out of the board. It's unclipped itself from the housing on the way out, so they're pretty slack really. Okay, so that's the keyboard broken down into all its component parts. I've been recording for about half an hour, sort of fumbling for my words a little bit, so it probably only took me about 20 minutes to get this thing apart. It does exactly like, it came apart exactly as I expected to and how I wanted it to. Super easy to pull apart, which kind of fits into the customizable theme. Yeah, so to summarize, the plate is fairly okay. Pretty thin for an aluminium plate, to be honest. I've never seen a budget aluminium plate case before. The KBD fans cases weigh significantly more than this does, as you kind of expect. But it's okay. I think that a thin aluminium case at this kind of price point of $70 is going to beat most plastic cases in terms of feel. Yeah, just because of the nature of the material. Cheap plastic is going to feel worse than cheap aluminium, I think, in most cases. So yeah, that little embellishment where they've just machined off the, you know, beveled the edge there like that looks nice. Yeah, it's a nice little case really for the price. The plate painted white, yeah, just kind of mass produced. Would prefer to see that. Given the weight of it, actually, it feels more like a steel plate, but I don't know that for sure. I'll have a look on the website and put it up on the screen if it does say. Yeah, kind of fine really, doesn't feel very custom, just feels kind of mass produced, you know, like an AEON or something like that that's not intended for taking apart. PCB looks fine, don't know much about optical PCBs and stuff. It's got RGB or at least white lighting. I don't know if it is RGB or not. In fact, yeah, it is RGB. RGB lighting. The soldering looks fine. Yeah, that looks okay. Keycaps, very generic gaming keycaps. Not much really to say about those. The shine through seems pretty good, which you'll see in the next video. Optical switches, which is my first time playing with the optical switches. The stabilizers are out and they're terrible to look at. They sounded alright in the keyboard, I think just because they were loaded up with dielectric grease. So I'll have to decide what I'm going to do about those. So yeah, that's everything that came in the box on screen there now. My plans for modding it, I'm going to put foam, maybe I'll do a silicone port into the case. I'll see how I feel about that one, just to muffle the sound a little bit. It needs dampening really between the plate and the PCB, but I'm not going to buy anything for that. I have got some leftover squares of the plate foam, KBD fans modular foam, so I may use that, so I might do that. I'll probably do the PE foam mod just to see how that works on an optical keyboard, see if that makes any difference, although I don't think that'll work so well because you can't just push the connectors through it like you do on a mechanical PCB with mechanical switches, so I probably can't do the PE foam mod. I'll certainly do the tape mod or the Tempest mod as you know it. I'll lube the switches, and I'll probably put films in the switches, yeah, because there is some movement in the housing there, so they benefit from that. And that's going to be it. I'll sort out the stabilizers as best I can. So I'm going to mod this, put it back together, do a sound test, see what it sounds like, and that will be in a separate video.